Folks, how's it going? This is Mr. Murray coming to you with a video due now for 3/17/2020. Happy St. Patrick's Day. We're here in the school closure, and this is going to be our first due now. I'll put this together to give you an opportunity to check out where are you at in terms of vertex form of quadratics. Please make sure, if you haven't done it yet, that you go back and look at the lesson from 3/16 yesterday. It should be in the same Google Doc. Please make sure you understand vertex form and have a good grasp on it and a good sense of it, and it's not just seeing this for the first time, okay? So that you have a background there. My goal is to go over the homework and do a little bit of a homework video as well. But for now, what I want you to do is please pause the video. I want you to try to graph these two functions, f of x equals, in parentheses, x minus 4 squared minus 9, and negative, g of x is negative x plus 5 in parentheses squared plus 4. Please take a second, pause the video, make tables for both of them, put them both in the same graph. If you need to print a graph paper, please do so. And then when you're ready, unpause, and I'll show you how to do these graphs. Alright, so how we do them is as follows. So the first thing I'm going to do, if you watch my video, the first thing I always tell you to do is to, making a table, extremely important. Okay, I recommend, if this is tricky for you, you try desmos.com/calculator. If you just go to desmos.com, that'll work too. You really need to get a sense of how to graph these. Okay. So the first number I'm going to plug in is 4, and that's because if I do 4 minus 4, this becomes 0, and 0 minus 9 is negative 9. So I get 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. This point was special because 4, negative 9 is the vertex, right? This is called vertex form because the x and the y of the vertex are baked into the equation. It's 4 is the x because 4 cancels out the parentheses. Negative 9 is the y because when you plug in 4, negative 9 is what you get. Okay? Now I'm going to plug in some numbers probably around 4, so I'm going to plug in the number 5. I think we discussed this in class, those of you who were here on Friday the 13th. I'm going to plug in 5 and I'm going to plug in 3. And because 5 and 3 are both 1 away from 4, they should have, and 4 is the x of the vertex, right? They should have the exact same y value. So I'll plug in 5. 5 minus 4 is 1. So it's 1 squared minus 9. 1 squared is 1. 1 minus 9 is negative 8. So 5 is negative 8. And therefore 3 is going to be negative 8. And if you actually plug it in, you'll get 3 minus 4 is negative 1. And you'll see negative 1 squared is the same as positive 1 squared. So this is going to be my red graph. I'm going to do 5 minus 8. 3 minus 8. Now keep in mind I need a total of 5 points. So I'm now going to do 6. And which one is the same y as 6? It would be 2, because 6 is 2 away from 4. 2 is 2 away from 4. So let's plug in 6. 6 minus 4 is 2. 2 squared is 4. 4 minus 9 is negative 5. So if 6 goes in, negative 5 comes out. 2 is the same distance away from 4 as 6 is. So therefore 2 needs to also be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I encourage you to plug those in on your own. And if you keep going, you should get a graph that looks something like this. Alright, so that's graph number 1. The graph of f of x equals x minus 4 squared plus 9. Notice it's upward facing. My a value of 1 is more than 0, so that's what we'd expect. Again, if this is tough for you, please see the video on vertex form that is in the Google Doc for this class. Alright, now g of x, I'm going to go ahead and do that one in, let's do green for St. Patrick's Day. So let's set up our table. And we should be consistent. Let's call this g of x. So what number am I going to start with? I'm going to start with negative 5 because that's going to make the parentheses 0. Negative 5 plus 5 is 0. Please do not distribute into something that's being squared. You cannot do that. Negative 5 plus 5 is 0. 0 squared is 0. Negative 0 is 0. 0 plus 4 is 4. You need to remember your PEMDAS. Parentheses, 0. Exponents, 0. Multiplication, this is like negative 1 times it, 0 plus 4. If you don't use the order of operations, you are going to get a different answer. So it's important we have the order of operations to begin with. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, this is going to be our vertex. Okay, now I need to plug in two numbers around negative 5. So I'm going to choose negative 6 and negative 4 because negative 6 is 1 less than negative 5. Negative 4 is 1 more than negative 5. So in other words, there is negative 6 and negative 4 are both 1 away from negative 5. So they're going to have the same y value or output or g of x value. So let's plug in negative 6. We plug in negative 6, we get negative 1. So it looks something like this. We square negative 1, we get 1. This becomes a negative 1. So we get a 3. Negative 1 plus 4 is 3. Okay, and if you plug in negative 4, again, you're going to get, rather than negative 1 squared, you're going to get positive 1 squared, which is the same thing as 1. So the rest of the thing will work out to be the same, right? It all comes down to the square, and that's why you have repeating answers. If what you plug into the square, two numbers that give you the same output when you square it, are going to give you the same answer, right? Because the rest of the process is the same. Once you square it, you're doing the minus and you're doing you're multiplying and then you're adding. What you multiply and add by never changes. The only thing that changes is what comes out of the square. So therefore, if you have two numbers that when you square them are equal, then ultimately their answer are going to be the same, right? So in this case, I get negative 6 plus 5 is negative 1. Negative 4 plus 5 is positive 1. Negative 1 squared and 1 squared are equal. Therefore, negative 6 and negative 4, when you plug them in, should give you the same output. Now I'm going to do negative 3 and negative 7 because those are each 2 away from negative 5. So again, they should have the same output. If I plug in negative 3, I add 5. I think negative 3 is better in that regard because I'd rather work with positives. Right, so then I do negative 4 plus 4. This becomes a negative. And we add negative 4 and 4. We get 0. So we have negative 3, 0, and therefore 7, 0. And I know that's going to work because when I plug in negative 7, I get negative 2. And when I square negative 2, it's the same as if I square positive 2. So here we go. I got my vertex. I've got 4 other points. Go ahead and graph and complete my graph. So here's the graph of g of x. Here's the graph of f of x. A couple things worth noting. Again, g of x has a negative number, that negative in front of the square. A is less than 0. In particular, it's negative 1. That means we should expect a downwards parabola, whereas when a is more than 0, we're going to expect an upwards parabola. So you need to know what to expect here when you work through these. All right, so this is just a brief kind of do now and recap of that. I hope this made sense. If you're really stuck at this point, I really need you to reach out to me for help to make sense of this so we can keep you on track. These forms are extremely important, and they're something that's going to be heavily discussed next year. So again, please make sure you understood this. Feel free to reach out. Have a wonderful day, and remember, you can do it. All right, stay positive. Don't forget to love math, and good luck with the rest of today's lesson.